There is a number buried deep in NFL record books that almost nobody talks about. Third, all time. For any fullback who has ever played professional football in this country, behind only Jim Brown, behind only Joe Perry, two men with Hall of Fame busts, two men whose names are spoken like scripture whenever the greatest players in history are debated, the man sitting in third place has no bust, no Hall of Fame jacket, no bronze monument in Canton, Ohio. Most people watching this video have never heard his name. So who is he? And why does the football world act like he never existed? That answer starts not in Oakland, not in a stadium, not on any field. It starts in Hartford, Connecticut. In a minor league, in front of crowds so small you could count every face in the stands. And it starts with a man who had already been told twice that he wasn't good enough. Picture this moment. It's 1968. The Oakland Raiders have just selected a fullback in the 11th round of the NFL draft. 11th round, that's the league's diplomatic way of saying, we see something, but we're not betting much on it. They bring him in, they watch him practice, they watch him run, and then they cut him. Gone. Before the season even starts. He walks into the Denver Broncos facility, asks for a shot, they watch him, they evaluate him, they cut him too. 2 NFL teams, 2 rejections, before he plays a single regular season snap as a professional. Now here's the question that should bother you. Because this man, this player that 2 NFL rosters decided wasn't good enough to keep, would go on to be so dominant that one of the greatest coaches in football history would single him out decades later as unlike any player he had ever been around. Not for his speed, not for his yards, for something that made John Madden stop and stare. But we're not there yet, because first, something has to happen in Hartford that changes everything. The Atlantic Coast Football League, not the NFL, not even close. This is where Marv Hubbard lands after 2 professional teams show him the door. A minor league. Crowds that would get lost inside an NFL stadium. Scouts who have better things to do on a Saturday night. Nobody is watching. And Hubbard runs like the Super Bowl is on the line every single play. Here's the detail that stops you cold when you learn it. He isn't even the team's starting running back. He's splitting carries, sharing the workload, getting a fraction of the attempts that a featured back would get. And he still leads the entire Atlantic Coast Football League in rushing yards. Every back in that league, every player getting more carries than him, he beats them all. Now ask yourself, what is happening inside a man who gets cut twice, goes to a minor league, and runs like that? What is burning in him that rejection couldn't put out? The Oakland Raiders were about to find out. Because buried in his original contract was a reserve clause. And the Raiders used it. They took him back. But the player who returned to Oakland was not the same uncertain young man they had released. Something had changed. And what it changed into is the part of this story that John Madden never stopped talking about. Fast forward, not to a touchdown, not to a record, to a quote. Years after his coaching career ended, John Madden sat down for an interview and someone asked him about Marv Hubbard. Madden had coached Hall of Famers. He had watched legends perform at the highest level every week for years. He had seen more football than almost any human being alive. And he said this, Marv Hubbard was one of the toughest players we ever had. There are people that will have contact and people that won't have contact, but only a few that will have it and really enjoy it. Marv was one of those guys who truly enjoyed the collision. He would look for it. He would look for it, not survive it, not power through it, not accept it as the cost of the job, look for it. The man who built the Silver and Black dynasty, who coached some of the most physically intimidating players in the history of professional football, is pointing at one fullback and saying he was different from all of them. Wired differently. Built for something most human beings instinctively avoid. But here's what nobody ever asks about that quote. What does a man who looks for collisions do to a defense? What happens to an entire AFC when 11 men on the other side of the ball know every single Sunday that Marv Hubbard is not just willing to hit them, but actively hoping they give him the chance? The answer to that question is why the Raiders became what they became. And it's coming. But first, we need to go somewhere painful. December 1976, the Oakland Raiders are in the Super Bowl. Marv Hubbard is not playing, he's watching from the sideline, from injured reserve. His shoulders had started breaking down in 1975, and by 1976, the damage was complete enough to cost him the entire season. The team he gave everything to, the team that cut him and that he came back to and proved himself to across 4 grueling seasons of lowering his shoulder into linebackers who knew he was coming and still couldn't stop him, that team is winning the championship. Super Bowl 11, Raiders win. Hubbard gets a ring. He is technically a team member. But confetti doesn't fall the same way when you're watching from the sideline. Now here's the question this moment forces. What did Marv Hubbard actually build before his body gave out? Because if the 1,976 Raiders are the dynasty that gets remembered, the years before it are the foundation. And to understand who poured that foundation, we have to go back to 1,971, to the moment when a man who came back from Hartford with something to prove showed the AFC what he had been carrying the whole time. 1,971. The Raiders had a problem that nobody talked about publicly. They were a passing team. One of the most dangerous air attacks in football. Ken Stabler, Fred Biletnikoff. A quarterback and a receiver who made defensive coordinators lose sleep on Thursday nights, preparing for Sunday. But when a defense knows you're going to throw, they can pin their ears back, they can blitz, they can overload the secondary, and dare the offense to run instead. The dare only works if the fullback isn't a threat. In 1971, Marv Hubbard made that dare the most dangerous gamble in the AFC. He led the Raiders in rushing that year, earned his first Pro Bowl selection. In 1972, he ran for 1,100 yards, the single-season rushing record in Raiders franchise history at the time. No Raider had ever run for more yards in a year. Another Pro Bowl, then a third. 3 consecutive Pro Bowls. 3 straight seasons as one of the best fullbacks in professional football. And now that 4.82 number we mentioned at the very beginning of this video starts to make sense, because that career yards per carry average isn't a coincidence. It's what happens when a man spends 4 full seasons making linebackers make the wrong decision every Sunday. But there's one afternoon that captures all of this better than any statistic. One game, one cover, one image that Marv Hubbard kept in his office for the rest of his life. The 17th of December, 1973. The Raiders beat the Kansas City Chiefs. A pivotal divisional game, the kind of win that announces to an entire conference who is in charge. Sports Illustrated put Marv Hubbard on the cover. In 1973, that cover was everything. There was no social media, no algorithmic highlight reel at midnight. The Sports Illustrated cover was the moment the entire country stopped and looked at you. It meant you had crossed from good player into something the whole sport recognized. He kept an enlarged version of it in his office until the day he died. Not the Super Bowl ring on display, not a trophy, that cover. Now think about what that means. A man who was told twice he wasn't good enough for professional football, who outran a minor league to earn his way back, who became the engine of a dynasty, keeping the moment the football world finally looked his way and acknowledged what he was. He held on to that image his entire life. And here's the thing about his life that makes this whole story land differently. He died on the 4th of May, 2015, 3 days before his 69th birthday. His wife, when reflecting on his playing career, said something that stopped the room. She said he had sustained more concussions than you could count, not more than he remembered, not more than the trainers tracked, more than anyone could count. A man who looked for the collision every Sunday for years, in an era when nobody was counting the damage, nobody was measuring the cost, nobody was asking what it would mean a decade later. He paid a price for everything he gave to that game that never made it into any statistic. And here's what makes that even harder to sit with. The Hall of Fame has never called. A man who ranks 3rd in NFL history in career yards per carry for a fullback, behind only 2 Hall of Famers. A man who led the Raiders in rushing 4 straight seasons. A man who helped build 4 consecutive AFC Western Division titles and 3 consecutive AFC Championship appearances. No call. And you might say, well, maybe the numbers aren't quite good enough. Maybe the resume has a gap somewhere. So let's close every possible escape route for that argument right now. His career yards per carry average was higher than Walter Payton, higher than O.J. Simpson, higher than Eric Dickerson, higher than Emmitt Smith, higher than Marshall Faulk. Men whose names define the position. Men with rings and records and entire chapters of football history written in their honor. Marv Hubbard was more efficient with the football than every single one of them, so why does the world act like he doesn't exist? The answer is almost poetic in how unfair it is. He played the least visible position on a team famous for spectacle. When people remember the Raiders of the early 1970s, they remember Stabler's arm, Biletnikov's roots, Madden on the sideline, and the black hole and the outlaw mythology that made this franchise unlike anything else in American sports. They don't remember the fullback who made the passing game possible, the man whose presence forced every linebacker to stay honest, the man who turned Stabler's clean pockets into opportunities instead of accidents, the man who made the scariest passing attack in the AFC even scarier, because ignoring the run meant walking into Marv Hubbard at full speed. And Marv Hubbard was looking for that moment. But here's the final mystery, the one this whole story has been building toward. If all of this is true, if the numbers are real, if Madden said what he said, if the cover exists, and the Pro Bowls happened, and the dynasty was built on his back, then how does a player like this get forgotten? How does the third most efficient fullback in NFL history not have a Hall of Fame jacket? How does a man who John Madden called uniquely, abnormally, almost frighteningly built for the sport of football not have his name in the first sentence of every conversation about the Raiders dynasty? The only answer that makes any sense is the saddest one. Nobody told the story. He was the grind behind the glamour, the foundation beneath the franchise, the answer to a question defenses were afraid to ask. And when his body finally broke, and the team won the ring he had helped build without him on the field, the story just moved on. Until now. That number at the start of this video, third all time. It belongs to a man who was cut twice before he played a game, who went to Hartford and outran a league nobody was watching, who came back to Oakland with something burning in him that 2 rejection letters couldn't extinguish, who spent 4 years making the AFC pay every time they thought they could ignore the run, who kept a Sports Illustrated cover in his office until the day he died, because it was the moment the world finally saw what he already knew. His name was Marv Hubbard. And now, you know his story.